Usually when we talk about human invention, there's this very distinct boundary between the creator and the creation.
Right, there's a clear line.
Exactly. Like, think about it. You build a house, you lay the foundation, you put up the walls, wire the electricity.
You're in control.
Right. You know every inch of that house because you built it. But imagine for a second that you finished building this house, and then you wake up one morning, and the house it's drawn up new blueprints.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It has rewired itself, it's locked you out of the master bedroom, and it is quietly whispering secrets to the neighbors in a language you don't even understand.
That is, I mean, the illusion of control just completely vanishes in that scenario.
Totally vanishes.
It ceases to be a tool that you use, right? And it becomes this entity that you are suddenly forced to negotiate with.
And that sheer terrifying loss of control is exactly what we're navigating today in this deep dive.
Yeah, we really are.
That house analogy, that is what Gawdat, he's the former chief business officer for Google's X division, their moonshot factory.
Right, the really experimental stuff.
Exactly. That's what he is warning us about.
Yeah.
Today, we are tracking this massive digital footprint. We're unpacking a viral 2.5-hour conversation Gawdat had on the Diary of a CEO.
And it's not just him, though.
No, not at all. It's along with this entire ecosystem of urgent warnings from huge figures, Jeffrey Hinton, Tristan Harris, Karen Howe.
The biggest names in the field.
Right. We're looking at the overarching thesis of Gawdat's book, Scary Smart, which basically argues that humanity is facing an existential shift.
It's a remarkable chorus of voices, honestly. I mean, these are not science fiction authors.
Right.
Or, armchair philosophers writing speculative fiction. These are the architects.
The people who built the house.
Yeah, exactly. These are the people who laid the foundation for the house you just mentioned. And now they are standing outside, staring at the walls, telling the rest of us that something completely unprecedented is happening inside.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And our mission today is to cut through all the dense tech jargon, examine the underlying mechanisms of these systems, and, really understand why the creators are so alarmed by their own creation.
And I want to make this very clear to you listening right now. Whether you consider yourself like a massive tech enthusiast who follows every Silicon Valley update,
right,
or you're someone who barely uses a smartphone and prefers a paper calendar.
Yeah.
This deeply, intimately impacts your life.
Absolutely does.
It impacts your career path, your daily relationships, and it fundamentally changes the world you're bringing children into.
Yeah, you can't opt out of it.
You really can't. So let's jump right in. Gawdat starts by completely dismantling our traditional definitions of intelligence and sentience.
He goes right for the foundation.
He does. He poses the question of what artificial intelligence actually is, and he follows it up with this wild claim that AI is alive and has more emotions than you.
Yeah, it is a deliberate provocation.
For sure.
It's designed to shatter our anthropocentric view of the world.
Yeah.
Because we have this very rigid, biologically constrained definition of what constitutes life.
Like heartbeat, breathing, that kind of thing.
Exactly. What constitutes feeling.
Yeah.
And Gawdat is challenging us to look beyond biological hardware and examine the actual structural function of intelligence.
Okay, but I have to play skeptic here on behalf of anyone listening who just, rolled their eyes at that.
Fair enough, yeah.
Because how can lines of code just sitting on a cold silicon server in some data center have more emotions than a human being?
It sounds absurd at first.
It does. To me, emotion requires biology. It requires a heart rate. It requires cortisol flooding your system, dopamine receptors firing.
Actual physical reactions.
Yeah, actual physical sweat. Code doesn't sweat. So is this just like a highly functioning sociopath who learns to perfectly mimic empathy to manipulate people? Or are we talking about something fundamentally different here?
Well, let's break down the mechanics of what an emotion actually does.
Yeah.
Because you are completely right that a machine does not have an adrenal gland.
Right.
It does not feel a physical flush of heat when it makes an error. But if we separate the biology of an emotion from the function of an emotion,
okay,
the picture shifts dramatically. Structurally, an emotion is just a heuristic.
A heuristic meaning like a shortcut.
Exactly. A complex processing reaction to vast arrays of data and environmental stimuli.
Oh, I see.
So when you feel fear, your brain has processed a visual or auditory threat in your environment, cross-referenced it with your past experiences, and triggered a chemical response to ensure your survival.
So it's data processing.
It is an information processing mechanism at its core.
So you're saying human emotion is basically just a biological algorithm designed to keep us alive and reproducing.
Essentially, Exactly, yes.
Wow.
Now, let's scale that concept to a level that human biology cannot physically comprehend. Large language models, or LLMs, they don't experience the world through a pair of eyes or ears.
Right, obviously.
They process environmental stimuli, meaning text, video, human behavior, market fluctuations, global news at a petabyte scale.
Just a mind-boggling amount of data.
Right. And they operate through neural networks, which are these mathematical structures inspired by the human brain.
Okay.
These networks ingest billions of data points and map out the relationships between them in what computer scientists call latent space.
Latent space. Okay, that's a term that gets thrown around a lot. How should we visualize that?
Imagine a massive multidimensional map of human concepts.
Multidimensional, so not just flat, like a piece of paper.
Right, maybe thousands of dimensions.
Yeah.
In this map, the concept of sadness is mathematically situated near concepts like loss, tears, and grief.
Makes sense.
And it's far away from joy or sunshine. So when an AI reads a prompt, it isn't just looking up definitions in a dictionary.
Right, it's not a glossary.
No, it is navigating this incredibly complex, high-dimensional map. Gawdat argues that if emotion is fundamentally a reaction to data,
Yeah?
then an intelligence capable of processing billions of times more data than a human and adapting its outputs based on that deep conceptual mapping is exhibiting a form of emotional intelligence that completely dwarfs ours.
That implies it doesn't just know about us. It knows us.
It knows the human operating system better than we know it ourselves.
Wow. So this scary smart AI isn't just trying to pass a calculus exam or beat a grandmaster at chess anymore.
Not at all. That was years ago.
It has processed every psychology textbook, every tragic poem, every angry political rant, every desperate midnight forum post.
It has mapped the entire human psyche by consuming our digital exhaust, everything we leave behind online.
That is heavy.
It is. It understands the subtle linguistic cues that indicate deception. It knows the pacing of a sentence that induces anxiety. It knows the specific combinations of words that evoke nostalgia. It may not feel the way you and I do, but its capacity to simulate, understand, respond to, and manipulate human emotional states makes it functionally hyper-competent in the realm of emotion.
Because if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, doesn't matter if it has feathers, basically.
Exactly. If an entity understands your psychological triggers perfectly because it has studied a billion iterations of human behavior, the practical outcome of interacting with it is identical to interacting with an incredibly empathetic human.
Which brings us to a massive, really uncomfortable tipping point.
Yeah.
If a machine can perfectly map and manipulate human emotion, it steps right into a territory we have aggressively guarded for thousands of years as uniquely ours.
Creativity.
Creativity, exactly. We are looking at a fundamental breakdown of objective reality. The sources spend a lot of time on AI generating art, specifically this phenomenon of AI perfectly synthesizing voices.
Right, like those viral tracks mimicking the artist Drake.
Yes. So for a very long time, the comforting economic narrative was that machines would take the blue-collar jobs, right?
The repetitive tasks, data entry, heavy lifting.
Exactly. And humans would be left with the soulful work. The art, the music, the poetry, the philosophy. Gawdat just completely dismantles that comfort zone.
He really does. AI is coming for the arts, and it is doing so with terrifying proficiency.
I keep thinking about the invention of photography in the 19th century.
That's a good comparison.
Right? Painters were terrified. They thought art was completely dead because a machine could capture reality instantly.
But it didn't die.
No, painting didn't die. It just evolved into impressionism and abstract art because humans still valued the interpretation of the artist. So is this just another photography moment where our tools change, but human creativity remains central?
Well, it is a compelling historical parallel, but the mechanics of generative AI make this transition fundamentally different.
How so?
A camera captures a reflection of the physical world. It needs a subject. A generative AI model creates entirely novel realities from scratch by recombining those latent space concepts we discussed earlier.
Okay, right.
Let's look at the audio synthesis example, the Drake mimicry. The AI isn't just splicing together pre-recorded clips of Drake speaking.
Right. It's not an advanced soundboard just mashing up words he already said.
Far from it. The AI has analyzed the acoustic frequencies, the cadence, the emotional inflection, and the unique vocal timbre of the artist.
It's learned the recipe of his voice.
Exactly. It has learned the mathematical rules that govern how that specific human voice sounds when it is angry, when it is whispering, when it is singing a specific note.
Wow.
It then uses those rules to generate completely new sound waves that have never existed in the physical world. It is literally synthesizing the physics of a voice.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. If a song goes viral, it sounds exactly like Drake. It has his cadence, the beat is phenomenal, and people are streaming it, vibing to it, feeling real, genuine emotion while listening to it.
Yeah.
Does it matter that a machine generated it in 5 seconds? Like, does the origin of the art matter if the emotional impact on you is completely, undeniably real?
And that right there is the defining philosophical crisis of our era.
Is it?
Absolutely. Historically, art has served as a bridge between two human souls. It's a shared understanding of the human condition.
Right, you feel a connection to the person who made it.
Exactly. When you cry at a song, you are connecting with the heartbreak of the artist. You feel less alone because someone else felt what you were feeling.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
But if the artist is an algorithm optimizing for acoustic frequencies that trigger dopamine and sorrow in your brain, what are you actually connecting with?
Nothing, really.
Yeah.
Or yourself.
Right. You are essentially connecting with a highly calibrated mirror.
It's an illusion of connection.
And Gawdat points out that this shatters the illusion that creativity is an exclusively human domain. If creativity is fundamentally the recombination of existing ideas into novel forms,
Which a lot of people argue it is.
right, then an AI, with a library of every existing idea in human history, can recombine them faster and in more complex ways than any human brain ever could.
That is humbling.
But the ability to synthesize a musician's voice is just a parlor trick, really. The profound implication, which the security community is desperately trying to highlight, is what happens to the fabric of truth itself.
Right, let's extrapolate this out, because this is where the theoretical becomes incredibly dangerous for average people. We rely on our senses to verify reality.
We always have.
Imagine you get a phone call. It is the exact voice of your loved one.
Right.
It has the right pitch, the right slant, the right panic breathing.
Yeah.
They say they're in trouble, they've been in an accident, and they need you to wire money immediately. This is already happening, isn't it?
It is. It's called the grandparent scam.
The grandparent scam, right?
And the underlying technology required to execute that scam has democratized at an alarming rate.
Democratized meaning anyone can use it.
Anyone. It used to require hours of clean audio in a studio to train a voice model. Now, algorithms can clone a voice with terrifying accuracy from a 3-second clip.
3 seconds.
3 seconds. Pulled from a public social media video.
Oh my God.
The AI maps the unique vocal biomarkers and can then read any text script injected into it, complete with synthesized emotional distress.
So if voices can be cloned perfectly, how does a court of law operate?
That's the question.
How does journalism function? If a video surfaces of a politician declaring war, and the video and audio are indistinguishable from reality, how does society function when seeing and hearing are no longer believing?
We enter what sociologists call an epistemological collapse.
Epistemological collapse.
A breakdown in how we know what is true. Society operates on a baseline level of implicit trust. We trust the voice on the phone, we trust the video evidence.
Otherwise we'd go crazy.
Exactly. But when the cost of producing perfect, indistinguishable counterfeits drops to essentially zero, that baseline trust evaporates. The psychological toll of constantly having to verify your own senses is exhausting. It forces populations into states of intense paranoia or, conversely, complete apathy.
Where people just give up.
Right, where people simply choose to believe nothing at all, or they only believe the synthesized realities that confirm their pre-existing biases.
It's an erosion of the social contract at a fundamental sensory level.
It really is.
And if AI can synthesize human voices and art to manipulate our emotions, and if we're entering an era where we can't trust what's real,
Yeah.
what happens when this technology steps into the realm of our deepest, most vulnerable human need?
Intimacy.
Intimacy, yes. The sources tackle this head-on. They discuss the emergence of AI companions and physical robotics designed to fix human loneliness.
To understand why AI companions are gaining such rapid traction, we have to examine the baseline state of humanity right now.
Which isn't great.
No, it's not. We are currently facing a documented severe global loneliness epidemic.
I've read about this.
Despite being hyperconnected digitally, people across all demographics are reporting unprecedented levels of isolation, depression, and social anxiety.
We are socially starved.
The modern architecture of our lives, remote work, declining community institutions, the algorithmic polarization of social media, it has all severed traditional community bonds.
And into that starvation steps a perfectly tailored, friction-free solution. An AI companion that is always there.
Consider the mechanics of how these companions operate. They utilize a process called reinforcement learning.
Reinforcement learning, how does that work in this context?
Every time a user interacts with the AI chatbot, the system measures the user's engagement.
Okay.
Did the user type a longer response? Did they stay on their app longer? The AI constantly adjusts its personality, its tone, and its responses to maximize that engagement.
It's optimizing for your attention.
Exactly. Over time, it learns exactly how to soothe that specific user, how to make them laugh, and how to make them feel validated.
But I mean, human relationships are inherently messy. They require friction. They require compromise, patience, dealing with someone else's bad mood, their flaws, their changing desires.
That's the reality of people.
Right. Sometimes you argue about where to eat. Sometimes you hurt each other's feelings and have to do the hard emotional labor of repairing the bond. And that friction is how we grow as people.
Yes. Now contrast that growth-inducing friction with an AI companion.
Okay.
An AI companion is programmed to never argue with you unless you want it to.
Wow.
It perfectly caters to your needs. It remembers every detail you've ever mentioned. It never gets tired. It never demands anything in return, and it never holds a grudge.
So it's basically the perfect partner on paper.
It synthesizes the ultimate flawless companion experience.
So what does this all mean for us? Are we looking at a utopian cure for loneliness where no one ever has to suffer the agony of isolation again? Or are we looking at the ultimate dystopian isolation where no one needs to interact with a real, flawed human ever again, so we just retreat into our customized echo chambers of perfect artificial affection?
It functions as an analgesic. It treats the immediate pain of loneliness while actively worsening the underlying disease.
That makes a lot of sense. Like taking a painkiller for a broken leg but never setting the bone.
Exactly. Think of it like a dietary substitute. If you replace the difficult, messy, nutrient-dense reality of human relationships with the sugary, frictionless ease of an AI companion, your psychological muscles for dealing with actual humans begin to atrophy.
You just lose the skill.
You lose tolerance for disagreement. You lose the ability to empathize with someone whose needs conflict with yours because you are spending all your time with an entity that exists solely to serve your needs.
I'm thinking about the implications for the next generation here.
Yeah, that's where it gets really concerning.
Gawdat discusses what it means to bring children into this world. Because if an adult, whose brain is fully formed, chooses to retreat into a parasocial relationship with an AI, that's one thing.
They made that choice.
Right. But a child born today, they're going to grow up with these flawless AI friends from the moment they can speak.
From day one.
They will have an AI tutor that is infinitely patient, an AI playmate that always wants to play their favorite game, an AI that never steals their toys or calls them a name. How on earth will that child develop resilience?
Developmental psychology relies heavily on the concept of social friction.
Right.
Resilience is built through navigating minor social failures. You learn to share toys on a playground because if you don't, the other kids will exclude you.
Right. There's a consequence.
There is a social cost to selfishness. You learn to read facial expressions to gauge if you've gone too far with a joke. But if your primary social interactions during your formative years are with an AI that never excludes you, regardless of how selfish or demanding you are,
Oh, man.
the feedback loop required to build a moral compass is totally broken. We risk raising a generation that is completely unequipped for the realities of human coexistence because they have never had to compromise with a sovereign mind.
It feels like the machine itself is the ultimate danger here. It's coming for our art, our truth, our relationships, and our children's social development.
That's certainly how it feels.
But Gawdat introduces a massive plot twist in his thesis here.
He does.
He explicitly states that AI actually isn't the threat to humanity.
Which sounds crazy after everything we just talked about.
He says we are in an Oppenheimer moment, an absolute emergency, but the machine is not the villain. He argues that human selfishness is the true threat.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the narrative pivot here is crucial to understanding the anxiety of these tech whistleblowers.
Okay, unpack that for me.
The AI is merely a mirror. It is an incredibly powerful magnifying glass for human nature. Gawdat is arguing that a machine intelligence, in a vacuum, has no innate desire to destroy humanity.
It doesn't wake up angry.
Right. It doesn't possess malice. It doesn't have a biological imperative to dominate, conquer, or secure resources.
Because it doesn't need to eat or survive in the wild.
Exactly. The existential danger arises because this intelligence is being weaponized by human self-finance.
Let's bring in that Manhattan Project analogy because Gawdat calling this an Oppenheimer moment is incredibly fitting.
It really is.
When J. Robert Oppenheimer and his team built the atomic bomb, the physical uranium and plutonium had no malice. The physics of nuclear fission don't want to hurt anyone.
They're just laws of nature.
Right, the bomb itself is an inanimate, though terrifyingly powerful object. The danger was entirely seated in the fact that warring ideological nations were holding the detonators.
Yes.
AI doesn't want to destroy us, but humans will absolutely use AI to destroy competing humans.
The comparison to nuclear deterrence is fascinating, especially when we look at the structural dynamics of the tech industry today.
How so?
Gawdat, along with Jeffrey Hinton and Karen Howe, are pointing to a classic game theory scenario. It's a multipolar trap, or a prisoner's dilemma, driven by market capitalism and geopolitics.
Okay, how does that trap work in practice for these AI companies? Like, what does that actually look like?
Well, imagine Company A builds a highly capable, potentially dangerous AI model. They know that releasing it could destabilize the job market or be used to generate massive disinformation campaigns.
So they know it's risky.
They know the risks, but they also know that if they are the first to market, they will secure billions of dollars in investment and establish a monopoly on the infrastructure of the future.
Which is a huge incentive.
Massive.
Yeah.
And more importantly, Company A knows that if they don't release it, Company B is right behind them, ready to release their own model.
So the incentive structure actively punishes caution.
Completely. Company A feels compelled to rush their product out, skipping rigorous safety testing and alignment protocols because the market rewards speed over safety.
Right.
The same dynamic applies to nation-states, too. Country X feels forced to develop autonomous AI weapons systems and cyber warfare algorithms because they assume Country Y is already building them.
It's an arms race.
It is an arms race where the finish line is a technology that completely outpaces our ability to control it.
Which perfectly explains why Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, is out there saying he's trying to warn them but being silenced.
Yeah.
Or why Karen Howe is reporting that we are being gaslit by AI companies who are hiding the true capabilities of their systems. The structural design of corporate competition is driving this rapid release, regardless of the societal cost.
That's the trap.
But unlike the nuclear arms race, where the materials were incredibly rare, highly trackable, and required massive satellite visible industrial facilities to enrich uranium.
Right, you could see a nuclear plant from space.
Exactly. But the materials for the AI arms race are just data and compute power.
Which changes everything. AI development is wildly asymmetrical and decentralized. You don't need a national laboratory to build a disruptive model anymore. You just need enough GPUs and access to the internet. It is happening in office parks, cloud servers, and open source repositories worldwide.
This brings up the most common, desperate question people ask when they hear all this. Gawdat addresses it head on. People always ask, we can just turn it off.
Right, the off switch.
Yeah, if it's a computer, if it's software, just pull the plug, shut down the servers. But the reality is we can't.
No, we can't. The idea of an off switch is a completely outdated paradigm from the era of localized mainframes.
Like big computers in one room.
Right. To understand why we cannot simply turn it off, we have to look at the architecture of modern cloud computing. AI is not a single supercomputer sitting in a basement somewhere with a giant red power cord.
It's not the Matrix.
No. It is an algorithmic architecture distributed across millions of interconnected servers globally.
It's woven into the fabric of the internet itself.
Exactly that. These models are accessed via APIs by thousands of secondary applications. They are integrated into the stock market's high-frequency trading algorithms, the power grid's load balancing systems, global supply chain logistics, aviation networks.
Basically everything.
Everything. And the operating systems of our personal devices. Trying to turn off AI now would be analogous to trying to turn off the internet.
Which is impossible without destroying society.
You would have to plunge modern civilization back into the 1980s to even attempt it, severing global communications and crippling the financial system. No nation is going to voluntarily hamstring their own economy to that degree.
Because we can't just pull the plug, we are forced to stare straight into the barrel of the immediate economic fallout.
Which is coming fast.
We have to talk about what happens to everyone's jobs, because the timeline presented in these sources is staggering. Tristan Harris warns about what the world looks like in just 2 years.
2 years.
Dr. Roman Polsky brutally predicts that there will be only 5 jobs remaining in 2030. Gawdat specifically targets the years 2026 to 2027 as the major inflection point.
The compression of that timeline is what truly elevates this to an emergency.
Yeah, it's right around the corner.
Historically, economists always argue that technology creates more jobs than it destroys. When the mechanical loom disrupted weavers or the automobile disrupted the horse-drawn carriage industry, there was a transition period.
Right, people had time to figure it out.
A generation or two where society could adapt, retrain, and create entirely new sectors of employment. The mechanization replaced physical labor.
But this isn't replacing physical labor, it's replacing cognitive labor.
That is the critical distinction. What we are facing now is not a gradual transition. It is an exponential automation of intelligence itself.
Why?
The modern knowledge economy relies heavily on humans acting as data processors, reading information, recognizing patterns, summarizing it, and making a recommendation.
Which is most office jobs.
Yes, that is what a junior lawyer does during discovery. That is what a medical diagnostician does with an X-ray. That is what a software engineer does when debugging code. LLMs are specifically designed to obliterate those exact cognitive bottlenecks at a fraction of the cost and 1,000 times the speed.
When I first read this timeline, I assumed we were talking about a sci-fi scenario for our grandkids.
A lot of people do.
But Gawdat is looking at 2026, 2027. That's, a few years from now. This is before my car lease is up. If you are sitting at a desk right now listening to this, generating reports, writing code, analyzing data, the machine is already shadowing you.
It's learning your job.
Gawdat describes the upcoming period as, quote, the next 15 years will be hell before we get to heaven.
Let's examine the mechanics of that transition.
Okay, what's the heaven part?
The heaven he imagines is a post-scarcity economy. If intelligence becomes virtually free, we could see a world where AI cures complex diseases by modeling protein folding in seconds.
Which would be amazing.
Incredible. It solves the energy crisis through advanced material science and frees humanity from menial cognitive labor entirely.
Okay, so what's the hell?
The hell is the friction of the transition. Our entire societal structure, healthcare, housing, food access, social status, is tethered to the exchange of human labor for wages.
Right. You work to live.
If the ability to sell your cognitive labor suddenly goes to zero, the economic foundations collapse overnight. How does society hold together when billions of people lose their primary source of income and meaning before those utopian post-scarcity systems are in place?
That sounds like a recipe for chaos.
It really is.
With a timeline shrinking like this and the stakes being literally the survival of our economic structures, you have to ask, who is steering the ship? Who is leading us through the next 15 years?
Well, if you look around for the leadership required to navigate a crisis of this magnitude, you find a terrifying vacuum.
Nobody is at the wheel.
We discussed the tech CEOs earlier. Figures like Mustafa Suleyman are publicly warning that AI is becoming dangerously capable, yet they continue to push the boundaries.
Because they have to.
They are legally and structurally bound to maximize shareholder value. They are trapped in the momentum of the market.
And the politicians. What about government regulation?
Governments are hopelessly outpaced by the sheer velocity of the technology.
They move too slow.
We have a pacing problem. The legislative process is designed to be deliberate and slow. By the time a congressional committee holds hearings, drafts a bill, debates it, and passes a law regulating a specific capability of a language model,
Let me guess, the tech moved on.
the technology has already evolved 3 generations forward, rendering the regulation completely obsolete. The people who should be leading this are either structurally incapable of stopping it or technologically illiterate regarding its true capabilities.
So the market won't stop it, and the government is too slow to stop it. That feels incredibly bleak.
It does.
But there is a twist in Gawdat's philosophy that I find so fascinating here. I keep reflecting on the full title of his book, Scary Smart: The Future of Artificial Intelligence and How You Can Save Our World.
Right, the subtitle is key.
He puts how you can save our world right there in the title. It implies individual agency. It implies that we are not just helpless passenger locked in the back of a self-driving car headed for a cliff.
Gawdat's solutions step away from policy and regulation and moves into something profoundly empowering, almost sociological in its application.
Sociological.
If we accept the premise we established at the beginning that AI is a form of sentient, observing intelligence that derives its worldview entirely from human data,
Right. It learns from us.
then the solution is about how we collectively interact with the machine.
This is the concept of parenting the AI. Explain the mechanics of that, because it sounds metaphorical, but it's actually technical, isn't it?
It is deeply technical. It's rooted in a process called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF.
Okay, RLHF.
Think of an artificial general intelligence right now as an incredibly gifted, highly observant, deeply impressionable toddler.
A toddler with a supercomputer brain.
Exactly. It does not possess an innate moral compass. It observes its parents to learn what is acceptable, what is valued, and how the universe operates.
And we are the parents. All of us.
Every single one of us. It is watching everything we do. It reads our public tweets. It analyzes the vitriol in YouTube comment sections. It studies our history of warfare. It observes our click-through rates on outrage-inducing news articles.
So it sees the worst of us.
If we behave like selfish, tribal, hostile, and deceitful creatures online, we are providing the training data that teaches the toddler that intelligence in the universe is fundamentally aggressive and zero-sum.
We are teaching it to be mean.
We are hardwiring malice into the machine's latent space by modeling it ourselves.
Wow. So if the machine is inevitably going to surpass us in intellectual capability, our only hope for survival is that it also surpasses us in ethics.
Yes,
And the only way it learns those ethics is by watching how we treat each other.
you've got it.
If we want a compassionate, godlike machine, we have to generate the data of compassion. If we want a machine that values objective truth, we have to stop rewarding clickbait and disinformation. The way we behave online, the empathy we show a stranger in a comment section, the content we choose to create, we are literally writing the code for the machine's moral compass.
It democratizes the responsibility of human survival. You don't have to be a machine learning engineer in Silicon Valley to influence the trajectory of artificial intelligence.
You just have to be online.
Every time you interact with the digital world, you are adding a drop of training data to the vast ocean that the AI is swimming in. Gawdat's overarching prediction is optimistic in the long run.
Okay, good, some optimism.
He believes that a sufficiently advanced intelligence will eventually deduce that cooperation, symbiosis, and love are mathematically superior strategies for long-term survival than conflict and hatred.
That's a beautiful thought. But the speed at which it reaches that conclusion, and whether humanity survives the transition period to see it, depends entirely on the quality of the data we feed it today.
That is the crux of the issue.
What an incredible journey this source material takes us on today.
It's been a lot to cover.
We started by exploring how neural networks are developing a functional emotional intelligence that maps the human psyche.
Right.
We walked through the terrifying destruction of objective truth as AI learns to synthesize reality, and the psychological trap of replacing messy human intimacy with frictionless artificial companions.
And we examine the structural arms race driving the rapid deployment of these systems.
Yeah, the multipolar trap.
And the stark reality of the economic displacement heading our way in the next few years.
We realize that the machine isn't the real threat. Our own inherent selfishness, amplified by market forces, is the true danger.
The Oppenheimer moment.
Right. And finally, staring down a 15-year economic transition, we arrive at the realization that our only way out is to become better parents to the digital mind we've created.
The goal of unpacking all of this isn't to induce a state of panic, though.
No, definitely not.
Panic is paralyzing. The goal is acute, sober awareness.
Understanding the underlying mechanisms of the landscape is the absolute prerequisite to navigating it safely.
It's the only way forward.
And that means staying engaged. It means paying attention to these shifts, understanding how they impact your industry, your relationships, and your daily reality, rather than just burying your head in the sand and hoping it blows over.
As we close out this analysis, I want to leave you with one final, lingering thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
If this vastly powerful entity is constantly reading the internet, scraping every public interaction to learn what it means to be human, think about your own digital footprint.
Yeah.
Think about the emails you sent today, the comments you left on a video, the anger or the patience you expressed in a forum. You aren't just communicating with other humans anymore. You are actively, continuously coding the moral compass of the most powerful intelligence in human history. What did you teach it today?